we'd like to be out there on that schedule and get it done so we can keep it clean.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Who's next?
Matt Baker, Finance Director. Just have one item I want to bring up, and that's our City of Avalon YouTube page. Currently has 27 subscribers. We're trying to get that up to 100. So if you search on Google City of Avalon YouTube channel, we're going to be the first result on there. So once we get it up to 100 again, we can have a page that's a little easier to find. Would be youtube.com/City of Avalon, but we need 100 subscribers in order to make that happen. So again, Google search City of Avalon YouTube channel, and we should be the first result there. Other than that, I have a couple items on the agenda tonight, but unless there's any questions, that's all I have.
Good, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. Captain Joe Badali of the Sheriff's Station, and since last report, deputies responded to 128 calls for service, issued 10 citations with 18 warnings, and we also had 5 arrests. We are prepping now for the 4th of July events and recruiting some personnel because we're competing with all the other events on the mainland. It's going to be a little difficult for us to muster up the reserves, but we're going to do what we can to definitely ensure that it's a safe event, and we'll augment wherever we need to.
You don't have to worry. Everybody's going to behave.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And no bars are serving anything, right?
Any questions for Captain? Thank you.
Thank you.
David Hart, Community Service. First of all, the Pride event that happened this Saturday was, I thought, a great event. There was did not seem to be any major issues. I think Jim and Michael can speak to that because they were a big part of making that event happen. And I think it was unbelievably wonderful to see some of our youth who are part of that community to be out there, to feel free and to be with people that were like them, and to see them free was really a cool thing to see. The Avalon Community Service Department kicked off summer last Friday with our Kids Day in the Bay smorgasbords. Our kids got to mingle with visiting kids and play relay races, water jousting, limbo, and other wacky games for about 3 hours. It was such a huge success. We will be creating beach game days on Thursdays in July.
Nice.
Summer day camp is going swimmingly. For our 6 to 11-year-olds, right now we've got a capacity of 30, and we're at capacity right now for the first 2 weeks, so we are sold out right now for the first 2 weeks. So you're going to want to get in, get your kids in for successive weeks, starting soon if you can. 3-on-3 Co-ed Basketball League is starting tonight at 6 p.m. down at Kanabe Park. It is a fast-paced league using FIBA 3-on-3 basketball rules. When on Tuesdays, go down, check it out, maybe even try joining one of the teams. I know a couple of them would like to get maybe a 4th member for a substitute. I-22 Beach Bingo
Quack,
is
quack.
back, starting at 6 to 7 p.m. Nobody squawked. I had
I
candy
said
for
quack,
you.
quack, you didn't hear me.
From 6 to 7 p.m. starting tonight out South Beach. It will be going all summer long, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Also, this summer, starting tomorrow, is the Fishing Derby down at the end of the Green Pier, and that's from 7 to 9 a.m. There are 2 age groups, 10 and under, and 11 through 16. There are prizes for the most fish caught, biggest fish, strangest fish, and most caught overall, regardless of age. Just to start off the Fishing Derby tomorrow, Avalon Smart Homes is giving 1 free bag of bait to the first 10 kids who show up early and sign up. The summer just keeps getting better as we are going to be putting our water park back in at South Beach this Thursday. Public Works did an amazing job rebuilding the steps to make the entryway to the water safer. And we will have an attendant on the water park to make sure kids of all ages we'll be able to play safely. We'll have somebody there from 10 to 5 p.m.
Wow.
Movies on the Beach make their way back to South Beach next Wednesday, June 29th. It is free to the public, with our first movie being a feature animated movie called Storks, a film about a stork that breaks away from the mundane life of corporate delivery world and finds his true real calling of delivering babies. A little 4th of July reminder. The theme this year again is Explore Catalina by Land, Air, or Sea. There will be a house and commercial building decorating contest hosted by Love Catalina. Just decorate your house before 10 a.m. because the judges will be driving up and down the street to see all who has participated. The golf cart contest will be held at the lineup at 12 p.m., starting at 12 p.m. down Casino Way. So all you have to do is make sure you just dress your golf cart up and line up, and you'll be judged there. The parade will start at 1 p.m. And then at 2:30, we will have our first band start to play there, and we will have 4 bands playing along Front Street from 2:30 all the way till 10 p.m. at night. So we have a soloist coming in from 2:30 to 3:30, another band 3:30 to 5:30, 5:30, 7:30 to the end, being interrupted by a little fireworks show at 9. So.
Usually the USC band comes and plays a little bit on the stage after the parade. Are they going to do that this year?
Actually, the last 5 years, we've had them come on the 3rd, and so they put a whole show at 3 p.m. on July 3rd on Sunday. We are in talks with them, maybe get an opportunity to come and play in the evening of the 4th as well. So, but currently right now, the 3rd on Sunday the 3rd, the band will be playing on the stage, at Wrigley Stage, at 3 p.m.
Great.
And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Good stuff.
No? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
To be a kid again, right?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, City Staff. Michael Alegria, Fire Chief. Only a couple items. The LA County Fire Marshal's Office approved the fireworks permit for the 4th of July, so that's all good. Orrin and I plan on going over, mostly for more of a safety briefing with the fireworks manufacturer that weekend before, so we'll be well ahead of them. Other than that, just want to remind everybody, even if there's not a fire lane sign, we had an incident where there was no sign, but it was very obvious that we couldn't get to the medical call. So our apparatus had to stop, and the guys had to hump everything down the hill quite a ways. So they got a ticket, but just remember there's no sign. Just you have to know that we have to get all our emergency vehicles by, and we weren't able to.
So it was red, but just no sign.
It wasn't red.
Oh, it wasn't even
It
red.
was a
Okay.
narrow street that they
Oh,
parked.
okay.
That's what I'm saying. It wasn't red, but
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of places, Beacon, that should be, all those
Right.
places that we just know not to park.
Right,
Um,
okay, yeah,
If you park and if you look and something can't get by, just know you shouldn't be parking there.
awesome.
That's it.
Good. Okay, city manager report?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to indicate that Orrin was not able to be here. He's over town. He was at a Coast Guard meeting earlier and then checking on repair and work on one of our floats that are over there. So he was not able to get back and did not have anything additional that he wanted me to add. I just wanted to recognize 2 of our city employees. I could do this all week long, but I think it's been mentioned a couple times, Public Works and what they did down there at South Beach. That happened really quick. We threw that at them at somewhat of the last minute, and Jeffrey Hernandez got his staff out there, and they got those steps repaired, and it was just, it was something I know they didn't have on their agenda that was thrown at them, and the time frame was pretty tight. So I just wanted to give them a shout out and thank them. And then tonight, council, as you know, you have the budget, final budget presented to you, and for the last 8 weeks. Matt Baker's been presenting that. I just want to recognize Matt and all the work he's been doing to get that ready. It's a tremendous amount of work he does to come here and then kind of concisely present it for both council and the public, which I think he's done a great job this year of making that clear and understandable for everybody, I believe. I just want to recognize and thank Matt. That's all I have.
Excellent. Is there a city attorney on board?
Yes, I have nothing to report tonight.
Nice to see you, Scott. Or I don't see you, but nice you're there. Okay, council member reports?
I'll go.
Okay.
I would like to thank my community for coming out and supporting Pride. It was a fantastic day. That the youth in this town that are questioning their sexuality or even their existence could come out and see people like them out on the street enjoying themselves. It was truly an amazing event. We marched down to the casino, and somehow or another, Jim Luchahan and I ended up being in the front. And we got to the casino, and we stood there as people were coming around. And let me tell you, for these two old guys, to see those people coming and supporting, we started tearing up. I mean, it was amazing. And that my community, and I think the four of you, Lisa, you're on camera, for being there and supporting our community. It just warms my heart. So I just want to say thank you for everyone that helped us put it on. And next year it's going to be bigger and better.
Thank you. Lisa, you have anything?
I do have a few things, and pardon my voice, and I did actually quack when Dave said I-22, but it sounded more like a frog than a quack, so we're just going to go with it. So I attended the kindergarten promotion this week at Avalon Schools, and I know a lot of the community attended the other promotions and graduations that day, 5th grade, 8th grade, and high school graduation. The school did a great job of operating all of those events as usual, and had the opportunity, along with Councilmember De La Rosa, to host Long Beach City College and Herlinda Chico, who was an elected vice president of the board for Long Beach City College, but also our field deputy for Supervisor Janice Hahn's office, and got to show them around the community, take them to the events, and I'll let Yesenia speak a little bit as to kind of what we discussed during that day. But it was just a really great day to get to host them and have them here. And then on Thursday, attended the Love Catalina Mixer at the museum. If you guys haven't had a chance to go check out the Norman Rockwell exhibit yet, because of COVID and just trying to remain safe for most of the last year, I haven't really done that. I haven't been in the museum as much as I like to be. And the exhibit is amazing. It's all focused on Saturday evening post covers in World War II, and literally travels the journey from the start, just before the war, and even a speech by Roosevelt before the war up through the end of the war. And I don't know that I've ever had as much of an emotional response to a series of images as I did with that exhibit. It's worth checking out for sure, along with the photography exhibit upstairs that's just stunning. The really cool thing on Friday evening, I went out to dinner with some friends to celebrate a birthday, and a couple of the tables around us were in town specifically for Pride. It was encouraging to see people coming into the community for the weekend for Saturday's festivities ahead of time. So I just wanted to make mention of that. And then Pride was so enjoyable, so amazing. I echo Michael's sentiments, and then we'll also add an additional layer of thanks to both of the McEwens, actually, to Ray and his wife Kim. I was blown away by and thankful for the discussion around LGBTQIA youth and suicide prevention, and the goal of that day to provide funding for suicide prevention. So big shout out to Kim and the drag queens that sat with her to discuss that topic. And managed to have a really open conversation in a community that I think has been impacted by that previously and maybe doesn't discuss it the way that they should. So thanks to them for sure for that. And otherwise, that's all that I have for now. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Yesenia?
Yes, so, like Lisa just mentioned, we were able to host Long Beach Community College for the graduation. We gave them a tour of our campus, so they got to see all the construction going on. But as you know, we grew up here, we got to show them the lower playground, middle school building, elementary bungalows, and you know, to us it means a lot, so it was nice to show them that it's different for us, you know. So I think that was what meant a lot to me. But towards the end of that day, they got to see just how tight-knit our community is, which just encouraged them even more to extend all the resources they do have, and they're just excited to get to work, just as we are, you know. So very, very happy to see what's next with Long Beach Community College. And Lisa and I are also meeting with Emma Peguero within the next couple weeks, just so we can come up with better ideas on how to strengthen our partnership, just with us, the city, the community, or even how LBUSD can partner with LBCC, you know, because we were all in this together. So hopefully we can come up with better ideas of how we can help our students transition. And also attended Pride, so thank you. Again, that smile, I was beginning to tell you, I could not stop staring at your smile. It meant so much. So thank you, Michael, thank you, Jim, and everyone that took the time to help them set up, and of course tear down, so I'm sure that was a long day and a great day. And last thing, I am also attending the California Contract Cities Legislative meeting tomorrow. And that's all I have.
Great.
Great, just a couple quick things. Pride was amazing. We went from a small little walk last year to a whole day of events, which turned into a weekend of events for many others. I appreciated Love Catalina's efforts and our community members that participated in all of that. And I also believe that we were 100% sold out for the weekend, on a weekend that we would not see that kind of attendance in town. So it just goes to show that bringing these new events to town can really help our economy, while also help bonding our economy and bringing us all together. So it was a wonderful weekend. I definitely want to give a shout out to all of our high school graduates. I'm so very proud of not only my stepdaughter and all of her friends, but every single graduate this year received at least one scholarship. And that was really exciting to see. It just brought tears to my eyes, seeing how much effort these kids put into COVID years, and still we had 4 valedictorians, and it just, you know, it really took them all working really hard to get where they got to. So, so very proud. And then wanted to give a shout out to the Island Company for continuing to allow these graduations to be hosted in this famous and majestic theater. You know, the theater was closed for a while in general, and to just now be able to go back into the theater for several different events, for Kids at Play, for community theater, for the new gentleman that's bringing the movies back to the community, and then to be sitting there for graduation. I just want to say thank you very much for allowing our community to still have that space available. And other than that, I am proud and pleased. Tomorrow night will be my last Gateway Cities Council of Government meeting as president. My tenure ends with tomorrow's meeting, and it has been truly an honor to be leading us as our president of 27 cities in our region. And I've learned a lot and appreciate the community's support for those.
And congratulations on that. That's really something. That is. Well, ditto on the theater, ditto on the graduates, ditto on Pride. Orrin's not here today because Rebecca Orr was the port captain in Los Angeles, and she's been promoted to Rear Admiral and will be serving in Washington, D.C. And Captain Ryan Manning is going to be her replacement. And I would have been there, except I would prefer to be here. And I met with the Children's Dental Clinic, and I don't know if any of you can remember the dental clinic when it was way back, when you were a kid, way back behind the Industrial Arts, and it was this old trailer. And then it's been 10 years since the new clinic has been there. One lady donated $1 million to get that thing built. So I was kind of there when all this was happening. They provide dental care to children. If they have Denti-Cal, of course, they get it through Denti-Cal, and they also do it on sliding scale for other students, so other students can go there as well. So anyway, it's a great program, and we are so happy that they are there. And that's all I have. Okay.
Mayor, do you mind if I just give a quick shout out as well, real quick? Sorry.
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Devin Hart, who ran back up to City Hall on Saturday morning to get us the proclamation for Pride to present on stage while we were there. She made an extra run on her day off to run up there and grab it for us, which was really quite sweet and kind. So just wanted to say thank you.
That's great. Okay, go ahead, Cindy.
At this time, I would like to present a proclamation to one of our community members, Yoshi Weeks. Yoshi, if you'll please meet me at the podium.
She goes, what's the podium?
And with no offense to the council, I am gonna ask that we face this camera because I would like to face our community for giving you this proclamation. So, a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Avalon recognizing the 50th anniversary of Yoshi's Fashion. Whereas Yoshi Weeks relocated to Santa Catalina Island in 1966, a few years after arriving, Yoshi opened her first retail store selling clothes that she sewed on Metropole Street. Whereas in 1972, Yoshi's Fashions started at the foot of the Pleasure Pier, where she sewed custom swimsuits for visitors and locals. As the business grew, Yoshi expanded the business by purchasing and selling swimsuits, t-shirts, towels, beach gear, and souvenirs. In June of 2022, Yoshi's Fashions celebrated its 50th year at the foot of the Pleasure Pier. Yoshi later opened additional businesses such as an Island Girl and co-owned Mr. Ning's Chinese Garden, which both operated for almost 30 years. And whereas the City of Avalon recognizes Yoshi Weeks for her continued dedication as a hardworking business owner, running her business rain or shine. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Avalon and the city hereby recognizes the 50th anniversary of Yoshi's Fashions and wish Yoshi continued success in the years to come. Dated this 21st day of June 2022.
Yay.
Thank you, Council. Would you guys like to come up and
Take a family picture.
You guys want to come down and get a quick picture?
Sure. Well, Harvey, how are you getting into this?
As you guys are going up to take a picture, I just want to say thanks to Yoshi. She gave me my first job.
We're gonna have to superimpose you.
We're all gonna fit. Oh,
Where's the cabinet coming from? Where's it facing?
Say maybe it's easier to stand here. No, I think it'd be easier for them if they stood here, but.
Okay, right here, we're staying. Our people are staying put.
There's no way I can design and you can give me a custom suit that covers up half of my body. Maybe I can't wear these bathing suits these days.
done all. Thank you.
Nice.
That was lovely. Thank you. Okay. Now we're just down to just noble group. Okay, we have Luke Shaner from Southern California Edison is going to make a presentation.
I'm sorry, Mayor, we skipped over the oral communications, if anyone has.
Oh, okay, hold on. Oral communications, this is an opportunity for people to speak on items that are not on the agenda. You will be limited to 2 minutes and no action will be taken. Okay, hit it, Luke.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I can take credit for this one. There we go. I'm here to share a water update and continue the discussion we had last time on June 8th. The content I have prepared today, it's 8 slides here, drought and water conservation communications, recent 2022 Catalina water trends, the Middle Ranch Reservoir level and stage 1 activation. The stage 1 water restrictions, have 3 slides to outline what those are. And then 2 slides dedicated to active drought response projects, 1 the desal enhancements, and then 2 being planning and policies. There we go. And so here's some communications. I go all the way back to April of 2021. That's when Governor Newsom first declared drought emergency. At that time, for about 3 counties. In July, executive order was issued calling Californians to voluntarily reduce their water use by 15% compared to 2020 levels. Due to this, we sent direct communications to the community and customers relaying the governor's call to conserve. In October of last year, the governor expanded the drought emergency statewide, including Los Angeles County. Fast forward to May of 2022, the Middle Ranch Reservoir measured 629.27 acre feet, and then
just for 1 second, because I'm trying to share it on Zoom. I get the wrong. I'm gonna get the right image up here.
Charlie, I hope you find all this interesting because you're going to be sitting here for a while. Charlie Canby.
So June 6th, we measured below 600 acre feet, and that's the trigger for stage 1. So as a result of that, we did file advice letter 131W to activate stage 1. The commission will need to authorize that activation. So this link will take you to what that advice letter says. We're here today just to share where we are with the stage 1 status. Also, highlight that customers are receiving the Stage 1 activation notice in their mail. We'll also be running a publication in the newspaper, and then we're here at City Council to share the same information. July 11th, when you look at the notice and the filing, is the targeted effective date for Stage 1. And on July 19th, we'll actually be presenting or holding a public meeting to go through the material during the City Council meeting. Uh, 2022 is some of the highest water demands we've seen on the island. We looked back to 2007 was the last time it's been higher than what we're seeing currently, and 26% higher than last year. When we last initiated Stage 1 in April of 2013, it preceded Stage 2 by 16 months. So that puts us into the September-October time frame, if that were to repeat itself. Just so, looking at when we were here last. For Stage 1, there is no rationing requirement. Instead there's 15 water use restrictions, so how you use the drinking water to help curb usage. Looking again at historical data, in 2013, after we implemented Stage 1, we saw a 5% reduction in demand compared to 2012. We're seeing we're trending higher than the prior year, but hopefully that gets curbed and improved upon with the remaining year here. 3 slides here that just highlight what the restrictions are. I'll read through them. They're also available on the website, www.see.com/Catalina. If you scroll down to the frequently asked questions section, there's a drop down that says what customers can do to conserve water. That has all 15 of them. It's also available where we hold and have publicly available all the utility tariffs. So you would go to this link, go to the water utility. Both Rule 14.1 and Schedule 14.1 list all the water use restrictions during Stage 1. First, note any restrictions include using water through any meter when the company's notified a customer in writing to repair a broken or defective plumbing, sprinkler, watering, or irrigation system, and the customer has failed to effect such repairs within 5 business days. 2, use of potable water that results in flooding, runoff, or overspray. 3, individual private washing of cars or private boats or aircraft with a hose, except with the use of a positive shutoff nozzle or 3-gallon bucket. Use of potable water for washing commercial aircraft, buses, boats, trailers, or other commercial vehicles at any time, except at a commercial or fleet vehicle or boat washing facilities operated at a fixed location where equipment using water is properly maintained to avoid wasteful use. For the private washing of cars, those are any nozzle that's connected to the hose that when you drop it, it'll be off, or you could valve it off so it's not running water. And the 3-gallon bucket, I think, is just to help instill conservation. If you're filling up a 3-gallon bucket to wash cars, you're obviously having to turn on and turn off water and not keep water running.
A question on that for the power washing, because we have a couple people that have those businesses. I don't know how much, they don't seem to use much. I mean, their business will be fine, but that's potable water they probably are using, but they'll be okay.
That's a good question. I'll actually do some research to prepare a better response during the public meeting.
Okay.
And actually, item 4 kind of gets into that. Use of potable water, washing buildings, structures, street cleaning, driveways, patios, parking lots, tennis courts, or other hard surface areas, except in cases where health and safety are at risk. So it's, if you're doing it every single day, but if there is a notice, I don't know, discoloration or concern with health and human safety, don't want to discourage that. So, and if there's any questions, I'll bring this to the next presentation, but we did set up an email to accept kind of, responses or questions. CatalinaWater@se.com. just so people could feel comfortable doing things, and if they do have a question, whether it's okay or not, to reach out and we could do our best to clarify.
During the last drought, when it was so serious, did you have that same kind of where people could write in?
I think we had a method to accomplish it. It might not have been through that email, but it isn't through another.
I just wonder how effective that is. I mean, wonder. I mean, it's a wonderful thing, just like all the stuff you put in my mailbox, and sorry, it ends up in the trash. I don't know if other people read from cover to cover. I don't know. Plus, I get 2 of them, and so anyway, I don't know. Do you read those suckers, or do you even get them? Do you get them in your bill? Yeah, I just don't know how effective those things are.
The mailers.
Yeah. But, oh well.
Fair point. It's in the tariff, so we are
You have to
required
do
with
that.
an activation. But I mean, I guess that's fair to say. If there's a better way to do it, we would have to propose that change to the commission, and they'd have to accept it, and the public
Okay.
would not have to maybe challenge it. But
Okay.
if you have better ideas,
I don't.
send it to us.
Okay. And SCB water.
Item 5 here, use of potable water to irrigate plants, gardens, or ornamental landscaping by means other than drip irrigation, hand watering without quick-acting positive action shut-off nozzles, or by use of a container or bucket not exceeding a 3-gallon capacity. Item 6, use of potable water for construction purposes such as consolidation of backfill, dust control, mixing of cement, concrete except at an established cement or concrete plant, preparation of mortar, curing, site cleanup, or other uses except where such construction is minor and does not require a permit or is required for safety and health reasons. Item 7, operation of commercial car washes without recycling at least 50% of the potable water used per cycle. Item 8, use of potable water for the filling or refilling of swimming pools, spas, hot tubs, and decorative fountains. Water level in existing pools, spas, and hot tubs that circulate water may be maintained to ensure continued operation of recirculation equipment only if they are equipped with a specifically designed cover in good working condition when not in use. Item 9, service of water by any restaurant except upon the request of a patron. 10, the use of fresh water from fire hydrants at any time for any purpose other than fire suppression is prohibited. Moving on to 11, use of potable water to irrigate ornamental turf on public medians. 12, use of potable water to irrigate outdoor landscapes during and within 48 hours of measurable rainfall. 13, use of potable water to irrigate landscapes outside of newly constructed homes and buildings in a manner inconsistent with regulations or other requirements established by the California Building Standards Commission and the Department of Housing and Community Development. 14, operators of hotel, motels, or similar business establishments providing overnight accommodations shall provide guests with the option of choosing not to have towels and linens laundered daily. The operators of these establishments shall prominently display notice of this option in each guest room using clear and easily understood language. And 15, the watering of plants, gardens, or ornamental landscaping by drip irrigation or hand watering with a quick-acting positive shut-off nozzle or turf and lawns with sprinkler systems shall be limited to the hours of 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. during the period Pacific Daylight Time is in effect, and 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. during the period Pacific Standard Time is in effect. Watering by use of a container or bucket not exceeding a 3-gallon capacity will be permitted at any time. So those are the restrictions. Moving on to active projects and programs to help extend the water supplies, mitigate the drought impacts and rationing impacts for the customers. Desal enhancements is a critical tool to strengthening drought resiliency. We plan to achieve a 7-year drought resiliency rating with the first phase of enhancements. This slide, I believe, has been shared before. Any changes are in red. And just to remind, share what was included last time, the desal enhancements and the implementation plan has been shaped by the 2017 Catalina Desalination Feasibility Study and the 2021 Catalina Drought Contingency Plan. The imminent enhancements for phase 1 include increasing seawater well capacity, accomplishing desal treatment plant upgrades, and increasing distribution storage. So you see the stair-step benefit of desal enhancements in the bottom left chart with blue lines outlined with the project we're actively pursuing. That schedule's on the right, the milestone schedule. We recently submitted the application to the California State Lands Commission in April. And so the next milestone is to complete a 90% design. Some of the key tasks within that deliverable are finalizing the well and pipeline easement and obtaining equipment drawings to incorporate. Next, planning and policy. Water master planning also helps, in preparation of drought and response to drought. So the drought contingency plan, which was largely completed last year, has yet to be final. It's just pending approval from the United States Bureau of Reclamation. We anticipate we'll receive that in the coming weeks. We also look to issue a request for proposals to develop a comprehensive water master plan. Essentially kind of bring together a lot of the recommendations from the drought contingency plan from the desal feasibility study and incorporate other capital improvement planning and projects on a 5-year, 10-year outlook and beyond. For policy updates, that's more along with the utility tariffs that we operate by. Anytime we change a utility tariff, we need the California Public Utilities Commission approval to do so. And so we would request that via an advice letter. Some of the changes we've conceptually identified as it relates to drought and water conservation. We really want to leverage the recent drought experience, the drought contingency plan recommendations, and ongoing observations of what the desal plant can and is demonstrating sustained production. So there's 4 items here. What we anticipate is making sure that an advice letter would be filed ahead of stage 2 so that we could enact those improvements before entering stage 2. First would be updating water rationing rates for customers connected to the Middle Ranch wells based on 2014 through 2017 trends. For instance, this could lessen the stage 2 rationing requirement. Right now it's 25%. We have data that shows for this distribution, the last time we rolled out a 25% mandatory requirement, we achieved a 40%. So maybe 20% or 15% would be acceptable. The second item would be further updating rationing rates for customers connected to the desal plant based on the latest demand trends within that distribution and the desal capacity. So this would likely lessen stage 2, 3, and 4 rationing rates, and that just, based on the latest demand trends, balancing demand and desal production. So you're maximizing your desal and minimizing, the rationing requirement. Thirdly is modifying conservation and rationing thresholds for customers supported by remote, isolated, and more vulnerable supplies. So when you look at this map, the bottom 3 shapes, Middle Ranch, Avalon, Toyon, that's one connected system. The Isthmus West End is detached from that. Blackjack, where the airport is detached from that. And White's Landing is detached from that. Right now there's one gauge that's connected to the water conservation and rationing plan. And that's the Middle Ranch Reservoir. So there's an opportunity to update the measurement, the triggering event for these remote systems so that it's not the Middle Ranch Reservoir, instead it's the local groundwater level that serves those distributions. And fourthly is establishing a WaterFlex alert conservation tool to help reduce demand during peak season or system outages when needed. What comes to mind for Catalina is if there's an unplanned outage for the desal plant, being able to communicate and get the word out to customers to kind of curb usage, especially if we anticipate bringing it back online in a certain number of days. That takes me through the end of the material prepared today. Any questions?
I have a few.
Okay.
What is the status of the water allocations that Edison said they would be granting at the beginning of the year?
We We've completed, on March 15th, we came and presented the status. We've gone through the first, I think it was up through W31 on that wait list. We've issued letters to all those customers, so we have completed that task.
Oh, fantastic.
And to follow up with that a little bit, I understand that there's still some more left on the list, but there are people that decided that they didn't want them. And so can you go further down the list since some people decided they're not gonna build, or they sold a lot, or whatever?
We're actually reviewing that data as well as other factors that go into the water balance. And to the extent we can extend it beyond W31, we want to see what the data supports and maybe potentially do that.
Okay, great.
But it may be possible that we don't get beyond that, or we don't get much beyond that.
Okay,
And it's based on supply, demand, conditions.
excellent, thank you.
And one of the restrictions that's on the list of 15 is really a hard one, because it basically says that a restaurant doesn't serve water unless a guest asks for it. And I think over the years, what we've seen is restaurants going to water bottles, which only just creates another plastic problem for us in town, and a recycling issue, and the lack of the CRV coming back to the community and all of that. I would love to see a way for us to communicate to the restaurants, whether that comes from Edison or from the city. Don't just automatically go to water bottles. Like, offer, glassed water or whatnot, but I just don't think I think we have to look at this as a community-wide concern, not just, a water concern. So if there's a way to, I understand ask before you just serve water, but if we could be more encouraging to the restaurants, don't just offer water bottles. Offer something that doesn't impact our landfill. And then the other, I want to give this example because Lisa brought it up at our last council meeting, but so for example, by next week or the week after at the very latest, we at Chet's Hardware with our nursery, which is the only nursery in town, will be implementing 100% reclaimed water for servicing all of our nursery water needs. And that will come from, I believe we can do 100% from our condensate from our air conditioning units. But I also remember hearing that it would take us one storm with a half an inch of rain to service what we would need for our nursery, for example, for the entire year. The problem I have with that is I'm 1,000% on board, and this was part of our plan to do that and to provide our own water for the needs that we have. But I think it's very unfair that Edison is able to come in after the fact and charge for the water that they don't sell. And so I know we had asked if we could get a little bit more of an update on that. I think it's really unfair. We're not thinking of this as how do we do better for the community. Doing better for the community is not rationing water to a point of where we've been into at stages 3 and 2, but where we come together and say, okay, you didn't use the water, the reward is you don't have to pay for it. I would really like to see Edison find a way to fix that, because even though you forecast things, maybe look at, do you guys need all the employees that you have? Do you need all the vehicles that you have? Is there any way that Edison itself can reduce its operating expenditures when we're not producing as much income generated from water sales?
That's a fair question. I think it's probably more appropriate for me to, engage with the team supporting the general rate case.
Yeah. Yes.
To bring back a response. What I do want to highlight though, so for this year, not looking back 4 years ago when we did ration, and that did lead to drastic drops in consumption and sales. Right now we're seeing more than we saw last year. So if we reduce water use going forward by that same amount, we will be balanced by the year end, which means there's no change after that. So want to just maintain the message of conservation this year right now to help acknowledge what are some of the other innovative solutions out there to mitigate other things that come up. because
Well,
of
when
it.
was the last time that our water bill was increased?
Well, there's rate cases out there right now.
I know, but
And there's another
prior
one
to the,
coming down
oh, I
the
know
pipeline.
that, but the last one, the last time we had our water increased was when? Our
Well, I
bill?
believe now, or recently, we're on an annual basis, the amount of water sold versus forecast is calibrated on an annual basis. So that either leads to reduced rates or increased rates if we sold more than was forecasted or less. So that
Reduced
would have
rate.
happened
Okay.
within the last 12 months.
Okay.
Something like that would
Okay.
happen.
And I have a question, go ahead, Cindy, you have one?
Nope, that was it
Okay.
for right now.
So would somebody can remind me, and Ole, you'll probably remember, you probably all, so when you talk about the construction and the use of only use non-potable water, so you've got all the construction, let's say at Hamilton Cove, and so there were those water totes, and they had some out at the building supply, and we could fill those up, but how are people getting that kind of water? Because they're gonna have to start bringing over totes somehow. They just go up to there? Okay, and that's where we got the water to do it, okay, well, good, so, thank you. Okay. Did you know that, sir?
I do now.
Good.
I
So
can
that's how
send
we
you
can
off-
still wash down our
or-
streets and do that stuff. Okay.
Hey, Annie, I know you guys can't see me right now, but can you hear me okay?
Let's go ahead, I'm sorry?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I know that last time they were getting water literally right outside of the barge area in Pedro, and it was being put onto barges, which I would suspect that most of Southern California wouldn't be as amenable to that this time because they're already much far off into the drought than we are. Luke, thank you again for coming back with the info. I did ask the city manager to put together a meeting with city staff in Edison. I appreciate that massive changes can't just happen at a city council meeting. And so knowing that we need to start having those discussions offline, have asked for that meeting to take place to be able to see what we can do to change the tariff, to put laws in place in Avalon to protect people from having to pay without usage, and to try to have a strong working relationship with Edison as we've had in the past. I know that I have not done my part personally to do that, other than having a meeting with Ron Haidt the very first week that we were elected, I think. Just because of the pandemic and everything else, haven't gone there. So I want to try to get back into those regular types of meetings, and would be happy to have someone else from council join in on those if we can. And then also just wanted to ask Luke if it's possible to be able to have every box holder sent the same information. I know that there are a number of renters in town who don't receive Edison. Their landlord pays the Edison bill, and then their landlord uses that to adjust their rate of pay for their monthly rent up and down. But I'm wondering if you can just make sure that any of the letters that are getting issued regarding the drought specifically and notifications for that can, in addition to being sent to the actual rate payers, that they also go to every box holder if they haven't been receiving them. I know some tenants have received copies of that letter from their landlords, and some who don't pay the Edison bill directly didn't know that it was coming yet. So I would appreciate that.
Okay, we could look into that.
Is there a way to send out alert text messages? I was looking through it. I believe I recently received one. I just can't find it. But is there a way to get, that information from accounts?
That
send out
should be
alerts?
available. I don't know that'll address the last point. That'll go to whoever has subscribed to those alerts through the account setup. But yeah, I know that's I think that's one we want to look at for that water flex alert tool. But there's other avenues and ways to extend information if we find what the right procedure is for Catalina here.
Yeah, I'm thinking it might be easier since some of the homeowners are not checking their PO boxes, so maybe we can get a hold of them that way.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else of Luke?
Can I just ask, Luke, can you take the message back and say that we'd like to have a meeting if we could schedule one? And then I'll get the date and time out to council to see who wants to join in on that.
Yep.
Thank
Happy
you.
to do that.
Okay. Naughty Fox is still open.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you. Okay, consent calendar.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. For the consent calendar, first we have the minutes. We're seeking approval of the minutes from the June 2nd, 2022 special council meeting and the June 8th, 2022 regular council meeting. Looking for approval for the total expenditures and the warrants from May 30th, 2022 through June 10th, 2022, totaling $1,014,682.66. And we have our ongoing findings to continue to hold remote teleconference virtual city council meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. That is to determine that the COVID-19 state of emergency as proclaimed by the governor still exists and has been considered by city council in deciding to continue to have teleconference meetings, and the state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing in connection with COVID-19. And that as a result of the COVID-19 emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health or safety of attendees. We have our law enforcement service agreement with Los Angeles County. We're seeking adoption of a resolution notifying the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors the city's desire to receive specified law enforcement services from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office, authorizing the expenditure of COPS grant funds, and authorize the city manager to execute the service level authorization form for fiscal year 22 to 23. We have a resolution to adopt the list of projects for the annual SB1 allocation. That is to adopt a resolution establishing a project list for fiscal year 22 to 23 to be funded by SB1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. And finally, on the consent calendar, we have the 2022 Conflict of Interest Code Biennial Notice. That we are seeking to direct the city clerk to notify all city departments and advisory bodies that have previously adopted conflict of interest codes of the biennial review requirements for such conflict of interest codes. Require all departments and advisory bodies that have previously adopted conflict of interest codes to review such codes and report to council any amendments, or report that no amendments are necessary no later than October 3rd, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve consent calendars, items 1 through 6.
That's good. I was just wondering if we could pull item number 4. I just didn't know if, I haven't been contacted by anybody, but I was wondering if anybody was on the computer calling in about any of the item. If there were any questions.
I have no questions.
Okay, perfect. Okay, then I'll second that. Been moved and seconded. Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Okay, item number 7.
Item number 7, we have a public hearing. Public hearing and submittal of property-related fees to Los Angeles County for fiscal year 22 to 23 property tax roll for sewer, saltwater, and solid waste fees. At this time, I'd ask council to open the public hearing on whether to collect the annual trash collection service fees, grease collection service fees, sewer use fees, and saltwater charges on the property tax roll for the County of Los Angeles.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments for item number 7 in your machine as well? Gabby, anything there?
No comments.
Okay. Do we want to discuss? If not, we'll close the public hearing. And do we have to, somebody make a motion?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Go ahead, somebody.
I'll make the motion to direct the city clerk to request Los Angeles County to place the fees on the fiscal year 2022-23 property tax roll.
I'll second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
No.
Mayor Marshall?
Yes.
That was 4 ayes, 1 no. Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Alrighty, item number 8.
Well, actually, associated with that, there are actually two items. The first was to direct that the rolls be, that the taxes be placed on the rolls. And the second item would be to adopt the 4 resolutions establishing the rates for the sewer, salt water, and solid waste fees, plus grease collection.
So you might be
So
in
moved.
favor of the first, but not for the second, for the rate increases, probably. Is that what you're calling?
I'll move to approve as stated by Scott for the 4, they need to individually be done, Scott, or?
No, we can do them all at once.
Okay, well, then we did. Okay,
So Lisa just updated her motion, and Michael, will you update your second?
Yes.
Okay.
okay. Call for the vote?
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
No.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
Those 4 ayes, 1 no. Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy.
Okay. Item number 8.
Next, we have a public hearing for approval of fiscal year 2022-2023 Community Development Block Grant funds and reallocation of the balance of the fiscal year 21-22 funds. This time, we ask council to open a public hearing to accept comments.
Okay. Public hearing open. Any comments?
I have no comments.
Okay, close the public hearing. And I just have one question of you, Bob. So the total of 111 will be for all, just curbs only, and should be able to get rid of, do all the curbs with 111, or what?
So we have 40, I think we did 46 when we started this. Okay, we designed 46, and so the plan was to have multiple years. Anytime that we receive CDBG funds, that we allocate it toward curb ramps. It's one of the simplest projects that we can do environmentally and also getting it out. And you see the benefit as we rolled through the ones at Vaughn's there. So we completed 7 then, so we still have the remaining ones done. And as before pre-COVID, what we are doing is we're trying to get 3rd Street done. So those 6 ramps at 3rd Street are our next highest priority that impacts all our visitors and our community. So we think that that's going to be a huge benefit.
And I just want to comment on that, since I sit on that corner every day. It's desperately needed, especially when visitors are trying to head over, especially over to CIVR. There is no curb. Especially when you see handicapped people trying to maneuver
And get to the
that
plaza.
block. It's really sad.
So, I mean, is that $111,000 worth?
Yes, that would be, we would take every bit of that to
Does
get
it?
that
Okay.
done.
That was just my question. Okay, alrighty.
And you're going to do 3rd and Clarissa and Descanso and then Catalina?
That's correct.
Okay.
You're
You're going to do that whole,
Nice.
That's correct.
that's perfect.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to approve the allocation of fiscal year 2022-2023 CDBG funds and reallocation of the balance of fiscal year 2021-2022 CDBG funds.
I'll second.
Okay, call for the vote?
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Item number 10?
9.
Number 9.
I know, I'm looking right at it, too. Okay,
Number-
go ahead.
Number 9, we have the Planning Commission Action 2201, of Planning Commission number 2783, approving a setback variance at 261 East Whitley.
Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing. And because of the notification that was going to be continued to July 19th, the people that were in the audience, I'm sure, decided to go home so they don't have to repeat themselves twice with whatever comments they want to make. So, but if there's any comments on your machine, Gabby?
I've received no comments.
Okay,
I'll make a,
it's closed.
sorry,
Go ahead.
we had to close the public hearing, but I'll make a motion to carry over the public hearing to the July 19th, 2022 city council meeting.
I'll second.
Call for the vote?
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
All ayes.
Item number 10.
Okay, for general business, item 10 is fiscal year 2022 proposed budget amendments.
Evening, Council. Matt Baker, Finance Director. I don't have a presentation prepared for the amendments. This is really just more administerially to make sure we don't come in over budget. It's all positive news in that our TOT revenues and our hotel sales tax significantly exceeded where we were in the budget with them. And so for both those revenues, both those items, there's a revenue and then there's a corresponding expenditure. On the TOT side, it's the 22% chamber allocation. So when we budget that, we had TOT budgeted at 5.15 million in last year's budget, with 22% going to the chamber being 1.13 million. Fortunately, our TOT revenues have significantly exceeded that estimate, but then there's also a corresponding increase then required for that 22% allocation. Usually in prior years, I haven't had to come back for this because even when we've been over, we haven't been over to such a degree that it would throw off our budget. But considering we're going to be making an additional payment to the chamber and an amount likely to be over $500,000, when we get audited and they do a budget to actual, it's a big enough variance to where it would likely throw us out of whack. And so that's why this year we're having to come back with this type of budget amendment. We usually come in a lot closer to where the budget to actual, so we don't necessarily need to come back for that. But just given the amount, that's why you're seeing that this year. And it's a similar situation with the hospital sales tax monies as well as the Measure H monies, which weren't originally in the budget that was adopted, but we began collecting those in April, or based on activity in April, collecting them in May.
Got it. Okay, is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the proposed budget amendments as outlined in our staff report.
I'll second.
Okay, moving to second, no further comment, call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
I'm actually going to abstain because I sit on the board of the chamber.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
4 ayes, 1 abstention.
Abstention, I like that.
City Council Member Ponce.
Okay, item number 11.
Next, we have the proposed fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. This is a continuation of the discussion of the proposed fiscal year budget, and we are seeking if consensus from council to adopt the resolution establishing the city budget for fiscal year 22-23. And this one, Matt does have a presentation for us.
Of course he does.
Of course I do. So this presentation really is a summary of the past 4 presentations. Again, heading into the budget, our goal was to present to you a structurally balanced budget. So that, again, that's a budget where our recurring revenues are exceeding our recurring expenditures. What we're going to be presenting operationally for the general fund and the harbor fund is balanced. However, we have a number of significant one-time capital expenditures, a lot of them from prior years that have been deferred into the current year budget. And so there are draws on reserves in both of those funds for that purpose. But what I hope to show you is that at least from a recurring revenue and recurring expenditure standpoint, the budget is balanced. And then lastly, just as a reminder, last year we adopted a budget and fiscal policies. Some of the goals within those was to present a structurally balanced budget, to be conservative and transparent in our revenue estimates, as well as it set certain targets for reserves in some of our major funds. For the general fund being a 6-month of operating expenditure target, harbor fund of 4 months, and then the other major enterprise funds of 3 months. Again, those revenues, reserve levels were target levels, and that doesn't mean we can't go over those, but that was kind of intended to be a minimum target for us to meet. So the slide before you now shows a breakdown of the fund balance schedule. So this is similar to what's on page 20 in the budget document. So how to read this would be from left to right, beginning with operating revenues. And so those are the charges for services or tax revenues or things that we have come in on an annual basis that are kind of the basis for funding those recurring operating expenditures. So using the general fund as an example, we have 12.1 million coming in as operating revenues and 11.6 in operating expenditures, so approximately 500,000 in net operating income. You could think of it that way. Then we have grants and capital outlays for a net cost of the city in the general fund of 1.3 million, and then an additional 400,000 in transfers. And so that's where we get that total draw on reserves in the general fund of 1.2 million. That's how you would read it going down. Special revenue funds, I combined a number of different funds just to get it to fit on one page, but they are separate funds, so I wouldn't necessarily view that as one line. But similarly in the harbor, we have operating revenues of 8.2 million, operating expenditures of 7.1, and that additional million would then be available to fund capital outlays. But as you can see, we have a large capital plan in the budget for next year. Again, we're trying to, when we present the budget, show where we could be. There are some of these projects that may not start until the end of the budget year, and those monies would then roll over into future budget years. But this is in some ways a what if we're able to achieve all the things we are trying to achieve in next year's budget from a capital perspective, where we could be. Again, this is the same slide, but I added two columns. One is the beginning fund balance, so you can think of that as the reserves, and then the ending balance. You can see in the general fund going into next year, we're projecting a reserves of 11.8 million, which is significantly higher than any time that I've been at the city, at least. And really where that came from is largely two sources. One is our TOT revenues, which is our largest general fund revenue. We used 5.15 million in our budget, which represented about 90% of our pre-COVID TOT revenues. Again, last year we did have a strong April and May, but as we were developing the budget, we really didn't know how long those strong months were going to last, and I'm happy to report they did last all year. And so we looked at our TOT revenues were about 3.5 million higher, so it went from the 6.5 to 10 is just from the TOT increase alone. Other revenues exceeding estimates, as well as some capital projects that deferred or that didn't get completed in the current budget year rolling forward, is some of the reason for that increase in reserves as well. So again, just to kind of show how the schedules roll into each other, the operating revenues of 12.05 million in the general fund come from the following sources. So as you can see, the largest revenue source for the city is TOT, whether it's hotels or vacation rentals. For next year, I set the budget amount at 5.7 million. Again, that's significantly less than what we received this year. Kind of the rationale behind that number is I looked at our pre-COVID number, and that's about a 6% increase from our pre-COVID number. While I hope the revenues continue on the way they are, but how I've kind of viewed this year as those are, if you will, while I hope they're recurring revenues, I'm trying to treat them as a non-recurring revenue, so that way those funds would be available to fund one-time capital expenditures. But that way we're not relying on the city to constantly have the best year ever just to break even. So I use 5.7, which is about a 6% increase from our pre-COVID number, but it is significantly less than the 8.5 or so we're expecting to bring in this year. Going down, the other item just I wanted to call out is in the other revenues. That's the Measure H hospital measure revenues. Again, it's a pass-through, so it's not monies available to the city, but similar to how we report the hospital sales tax in a sub-fund that rolls into the general fund, the Measure H monies right now are being reported through there. And so the 1.2 million, about 750,000 of it relates to that Measure H. And why the current year number is so high is it does include 880,000 of the ARPA state and local fiscal recovery funds. And those were monies the city received to recoup lost revenue that we did experience back in fiscal year 1920 and 20 and 21. And those monies are going to be used for general government purposes.
So I have a question on the admissions tax. That's everybody that pays the 4% to the city?
That is every land-based business that pays the tax to the city. So there is admissions tax that goes to the harbor fund. So a kayak business or a jet ski rental business, they are assessed admissions tax. They're also assessed the harbor use fee. So that the harbor use fee is a 7% fee, if you will, or tax, if you will. Of that 7, 4% is booked to add tax, and the remaining 3 is to the harbor use fee. But for the general fund, which is one that's on this slide, it is the 4%. So that would be all the land tours, any ticketed events. So if there's a concert out at Descanso, that was a ticketed event, those types of activities would roll into the ad tax.
So, that also includes the golf cart
Golf
rentals.
cart rentals would be in that number,
Yeah,
yeah.
which, I'm still very concerned with that number, but, okay, that's for another day.
Matt, can I just ask a quick question, Matt, on that as well?
Yep.
I'm assuming based on the numbers that you've estimated for 23, that this does not include the hope that either of the two measures currently on the ballot would pass.
I did not
They will.
anticipate either of those measures when I came up with my budget or my estimate, so.
Thank you.
So the next slide is a breakdown of the operating expenditure. So if the top row is the revenue number from the last slide, the 12.05 million. If you look at the various general fund departments, so that would be our fire department, our sheriff's contract, or law enforcement is how I've described it there. Public works, planning, recreation. I pulled out the chamber allocation. It rolls up a lot of times, if you're looking at my budget document, into the recreation, but it kind of skews or overemphasizes the size of the rec's budget, so I've pulled it out for that purpose here. And then other general fund activities, the majority of the monies in there relate to either the hospital sales tax pass-through expenditure or the Measure H hospital expenditure. Of that 1.9, 1.3 of it would be for those purposes.
Wait, hold on, I'm going to run this real quick.
So the next slide might provide a little more detail. What I've done is broken down the different departments by the kind of the major expenditure categories. Again, nothing has significantly changed from when we presented the detailed slides, I believe on May 3rd for the general fund. As you can see, fire department, most of the expenditures relate to salaries and benefits. Law enforcement, the contract service includes the amount that was adopted today as well as the COPS grant money. So the city gets some additional funds that have to be used for foot patrol or active law enforcement purposes. And so we have a revenue, if you look on the revenue side for these COPS funds, the COPS is the name of the program. I can tell you the acronym right off the top of my head. But there's a related expenditure. And so when we bring on additional deputies for busy weekends and things like that, we have some additional funds outside the contract that's available for those purposes.
So that's the 115?
So about 1.7 of it, or 1.6 would be the contract that was in tonight's meeting, and then another 100,000 for the supplemental coverage.
Okay.
So then just again, the internal service, that's how we charge for admin and finance's time and all the services that benefit multiple funds. We have a process of how we allocate those costs to do it in a fair manner, where we consider the number of employees in a given department, as well as the number of expenditures and kind of the volume of activity. And so that's how we allocate those in a fair manner. And so we have 3 internal service funds that are included in that number. It'd be the garage or vehicle maintenance, the city's general liability insurance, and then the admin, as I discussed. So this slide is actually all new. It wasn't in any of the prior 4 presentations. These are what are often called our non-major governmental and special revenue funds. The Housing Authority is the monies we have that are dedicated to housing purposes. Revenues, right now, the only monies we get in would be our interest we earn on the monies currently in LAIF that are available or restricted to housing purposes. Salaries and benefits, we do charge a portion of the city manager, the assistant city manager, and the public works director's time to housing purposes. We do have some maintenance, and that's utilities up at our 206 East Whitley property, I believe is what makes up that maintenance. Contract services would be our city attorney as well as RSG. And then So you can see we don't charge any internal services to our special revenue or non-major funds. Their share, if you will, gets picked up by the general fund, so the other enterprise funds aren't picking up their share. It gets assigned to the general fund. And then the capital outlays for the Housing Authority relate to the 206 East Whitley projects, one of them for the remodel of the existing structure, and then the other monies to pursue adding an additional structure to the property. Local transportation, that is our local return funds we receive from County Metro. So as part of the 10% sales tax, there are 4 measures that the voters of LA County passed for funds dedicated to transportation purposes. For us, there's 2 major programs it funds. Those local return funds pay for the majority of our land transit operations, so that would be our buses and our dial-a-ride program, as well as our commuter subsidy program. If you noticed, our budget is higher than the typical $700,000 as we are pursuing, and hopefully this week we'll have confirmed some additional monies. And so we'll be coming back to council likely later this summer to discuss proposals of how best to use those additional funds, as they would be restricted to either our land transit or our commuter subsidy programs. Street administrations are gas tax monies, so we receive highway use tax as well as SB1 funds, and those have to be spent for street purposes. Right now, our SB1 funds, how we've been dedicating them is to help offset our costs for the Five Corners pedestrian improvement projects, and we're using the HUDA, the highway use tax monies, help pay for our street sweeper as well as pothole improvements and things of that nature. And so, as you can see right now, there is a draw on that fund of $40,000. That's mainly because in prior years we haven't spent the full amount. So we do have, I believe, $50,000 in the CIP budget for pothole street improvements. Traffic safety is our code enforcement. The revenues are from fines and issued by our code enforcement officers. A portion of their salary is charged to this fund, as well as a portion of our vehicle clerk is charged to this fund. So there's, I believe, 1.5 FTEs, but 3 employees with time allocated there, as well as nominal amounts for maintenance and contract services would be things like vehicle hearing, I believe. CDBG, this is a number I need to update. The 138 was what we had as our estimate. We got our final number in as 111, and that was approved in the public hearing. But as you can see, there is a 138 in revenue and 138 in capital outlay. So the net cost of the city for those projects is 0. So I'll update that and make sure that we're not spending more than the CDBG monies we're bringing in. That additional $30,000 is for our senior meals and Meals on Wheels program. In some years, when we have additional CDBG monies, we have used those CDBG monies for that purpose, the senior meals and Meals on Wheels. So we charge the expenditure to the CDBG account, but in years where we don't have funding through CDBG for that purpose, the general fund transfers the additional monies to make up the shortfall. So again, with that program, the participants pay half of the meal cost, and then the city covers the other half of the meal cost. And when there's funds available, we'll use CDBG funds for that purpose, but if not, the general fund covers the difference. And then lastly, the trust
Matt,
account.
I'm
Yep.
so sorry. A question rose a while ago, and I never actually asked it, but is there any financial criteria to be able to participate in the Meals on Wheels?
That would probably be a better question for the Recreation Department. I believe there is when we use CDBG funds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if we internally have any set criteria or not. I'd have to ask Recreation.
Well, for example, when I've gone to a couple senior meals and that have Singing Waters, it's for some it's like $2 and some it's like $5 or something. It's, yeah, very nominal either way. So I don't know how much they really qualify them, but yeah.
And then lastly, the trust account on the bottom is a trust account that was set up for donations for, I believe, fire equipment purposes. you know, it's great when we get those donations, but I don't plan on it in the budget. And then the chief or the fire department will know if they have any planned draws. I believe there is 30-some thousand in that fund for those purposes. But I don't plan on donations, at least as a general rule, when I do my budget estimates. So it's found money when we do receive it.
Matt, was there any question on the street administration of losing any of those funds if there was? I know that there was discussion of potential gas tax holiday spending. I don't know if any of that is those specific funds or if that was.
I've seen some news, but everything I've read has been a federal gas tax holiday, which wouldn't, I don't believe, apply or impact us, but the state could potentially be looking at something similar. We generally get our estimates at around this time or a few months ago, and so they wouldn't have been factored in if there was a planned, or if there is a gas tax holiday, it may impact us, but everything I've heard has been at the federal level, which I don't believe would impact our revenues.
Okay, thank you.
So the next slide then is a breakdown of our harbor fund revenues. This is all Fund 103, our operating fund. This is very similar to what was presented at that May 3rd meeting. Just to call out the cross-channel wharfage, that $2.35 million, that's about 98% of what we did in fiscal year 19. Again, the operating portion of our wharfage has not changed. We did increase the city's wharfage from $2.50 to $3, but that 50 cents is dedicated to our harbor capital fund. So from our harbor operations fund standpoint, the 2019 percentage of that wharfage is the same as what's being presented for 23. So again, we did significantly exceed our 2019 numbers, probably by about 10% this year. But again, we're trying to set the number in an area we're confident we can hit, and so that 2.35 is slightly less than our pre-COVID fiscal year 19 figure. The other one we always go low, just to highlight out, is the transfer fees, the second from the bottom at $100,000. So we get fees when there are sales of moorings, but again, it's very difficult. The last 2 years have been have had a lot of activity, and we've seen transfer fees exceeding $300,000. But again, when I'm coming up with the estimates, I try to make it at a level I feel confident we can achieve. And when we do have excess funds, that's great to helping restore those reserves in the harbor. The harbor has had a good year, but there are a lot of very big capital needs in the harbor as well that I'll touch on at the end of this presentation. And so it's great when those additional funds come through. So again, this is a breakdown of Fund 103 net operating revenue. So that's $6.8 million in revenue from the prior slide. And then how that monies get spent in the harbor. Salaries and benefits, so that would include both portion of public works time charged to the harbor, dedicated harbor maintenance, of which there are 3, the harbor patrol, the harbor master. In this budget, we've also added an assistant harbor master, and we've had that in prior budgets, but that was one of the positions that was eliminated during COVID. That's been restored in this proposed budget, as well as the harbor admin is included in those salaries and benefits. Maintenance and operations, approximately half of that is related to utilities. So the harbor does pay the sewer fund, the saltwater fund, and the solid waste fund some monies for its impact on those enterprise funds. Contract services, I just put this down for DBAW loan. That's Department of Boating and Waterways. We borrowed monies to complete the mole construction back in '89. And we made the last payment this current budget year, so the next budget there's no money's going to Boating and Waterways for that purpose. So just in time for the next go round. And then you can see in the operating fund we do have net operating revenues in the budget of $300,000. So those operating revenues are exceeding the recurring operating expenditures by $300,000 in this budget.
Matt, I have a quick question, and yourself and the city manager may tell me that we're not allowed to even have any conversation on this, but I'm gonna ask the question anyway. So since the harbor and the general employees voted to go to the union, how are we able to calculate what the benefits are? Because we won't, at the end of June, have a contract or have that signed.
It's, I think I can tell you, at least from a budget standpoint, we do have some monies included in addition to the current MOU, factoring in some of that, but it is an estimate, and depending on how those discussions go, we potentially would need to come back to council if those discussions don't align with my budget estimates, if that's a fair way to put it.
That's accurate. I mean, we have tried our best to calculate, but we are still in negotiations with both those groups.
So that means though that they just have another negotiator that's gonna come in and negotiate with the city. It won't actually be this, I mean, they'll have to come in and negotiate with the city council, correct? Or with you, and then you
Correct.
bring it to the city council to
Correct.
say yay or nay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So then breaking down in a little more detail, again, this is similar to what was presented on May 3rd. The main change in the harbor was we didn't have the assistant city manager position in the budget, or excuse me, the assistant harbor master position in the budget when we presented on May 3rd, but it's included there now. I don't believe there are any other significant changes, and by significant I mean more than $1,000 in either direction. From an operations standpoint, that includes the FTEs. It includes full-time and part-time harbor patrol, as well as dedicated harbor maintenance and parking maintenance. So there are 3 harbor maintenance, 1 parking maintenance included in that 18.1, and the others would relate to full-time harbor patrol, part-time harbor patrol, as well as harbor sanitation, I believe makes up either a half or maybe up to 1 FTE there. Admin is the assistant harbor master, the harbor master. 80% of the harbor master's time is charged to operations, 20% is charged to the capital fund, and then the harbor admin is the third there. And then a portion of the public works crew is split between the general fund, the harbor fund, as well as a little bit to the sewer and solid waste funds. In the contract services in the public works, 900,000 of that 1.4 relates to our contract with the county for lifeguard services. In operations, that is the shoreboat contract. Is that 200, or it's the majority of that 291,000. I believe there's another contract included in that amount. Again, the other enterprise funds were discussed in more detail at the last meeting. Sewer revenues are estimated to be about $3 million. And there are planned draws on reserves, but that's largely due to, in the current budget, we had about $500,000 in sewer CIP, but we only spent about $200,000 this year, and so we rolled forward that unspent amount. There's a 10-year sewer saltwater CIP program plan where when funds are available, depending on priorities, we can kind of shift and identify those, and Bob can speak to that plan, or if you'd like to see that document, I'm sure Bob can provide it. Solid waste, again, contract services makes up the majority of those expenditures in that fund. The SB 1383 accounts for about 250,000 of that 2.4 million, as well as 200,000 in there for landfill expansion, closure, and post-closure engineering permitting costs. Then lastly, transit. This is one that I don't usually touch on too much. That is for the portion that is not funded by our local return money. So generally how it works is our transit costs are covered up to the amount of local return revenues we receive, and that's in that special revenue fund that I showed on an earlier slide. Our fare box revenues are then included, and I believe that revenue number there also includes about 100,000 transfer from the general fund. So our transit operations after the the monies we get in local returns are still, and the monies we get for operating fare box revenues, we still do subsidize transit operations by about 100,000, or at least in next year's budget, it's estimated to be about 125,000. And you can see that money on the budget document on page 20 in the transfers column. Internal service funds, again, this is where we account for the work performed on the benefit of all funds. So that's where elected would fall under, as well as our city attorney, or at least a portion of our city attorney falls under legal there. Admin, finance, and general government. Right now in the budget, we do have a full-time assistant city manager and a full-time senior accountant factored in that budget. Both those positions are currently vacant, but for budget purposes, we have them in 100%. So if there's some delays in filling those positions, that can result in budget savings that'll benefit all the funds. Insurance is our city's general liability, as well as litigation costs. We do have some litigation costs anticipated in the next year. And then lastly, vehicle maintenance. That's our 2 mechanics at the garage, as well as rent for the garage and supplies, oil, filters, tires, things of that nature. And again, all of these should be fairly similar to what was presented on the May 3rd meeting, where we had the breakdown details for those figures.
So the elected is us?
Yes.
So what do you maintain and operate?
That's your travel and training budget.
Okay.
Primarily, there may be one other account that goes into that, but I believe the vast majority of that's training and travel.
Okay. I've just never been called maintenance and operations before.
And that number is kind of in line with our pre-COVID numbers. So for the last few years, we've significantly reduced the training and travel budget, but that number is more in line with the kind of the pre-COVID levels.
Matt, I noticed in the budget document you said that had 6 electeds. Is that for city treasurer, or what is that 6 equivalent for?
So there are 2, I guess to take a step back, we break them down separately, and we've been doing it since before I got here. There's account 10110, which is for our council, so the 5 council members, their time and their travel gets charged to that. We also have a separate department for the city treasurer, 10115. Why we separated them out, I can't tell you, but we did. And so I've kind of kept that just for comparison purposes. But the number there for elected includes the city treasurer, which I know is currently an appointed position.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So the capital improvements, this is again very much in line with what was presented on the May 19th meeting, other than I have since then met with the city manager and the public works director to try to get updated estimates as far as expenditures for these funds. The middle column there shows the expenditures spent to date. I tried to highlight some of these projects have been ongoing, and in some cases for a number of years, so I wanted to provide an update to council of how much has been spent to date. This amount is based on expenditures, not net of any grants. So for example, the Five Corners pedestrian project, we've spent $435,000 to date on that project, with, I believe it's a 78% grant match, so we would have received about $300,000 back, but that is the total amount of expenditure. As you can see in the current budget, the Five Corners has some significant funds dedicated to construction as we move forward with construction on that project, as well as construction with the Pebbly Beach Road riprap repairs. Crescent Avenue Hillside Stairs, that was in the prior year's budget. That's been carried forward into the current year budget. JMF loan repayment is in the budget every year. Next year, so not the current fiscal year, but fiscal year 24 will be the last year for that, for those payments. The city park improvements are those 5 projects that Dave has been discussing at the meetings. Those are largely grant offset, and we're expecting, I think, construction after the busy summer season. And then this budget also does include $250,000 for vehicle replacement. It's still on our to-do list, and it'll be a priority for 23 to have a more robust vehicle replacement schedule for all the departments. $250,000 doesn't fully fund based on chief's estimates, but we will, look to see if we can get a few more years out of some of those vehicles. But it is $250,000 or $350,000 over the last 2 years more than we had been setting aside, and so it's definitely a step in the right direction, and those aren't insignificant amounts of funds for us to be setting aside. Float rehabilitation, so now I'm on the harbor's capital improvements. The current year, we're looking at rehabbing floats 4 and 5. That expenditure to date relates to floats 2 and 3. That was completed in the current budget year. The end float rehabilitation, we've tried to take that on as a multi-year project where we're breaking up some of the repairs that were needed into smaller chunks. That way it takes a little pressure off the budget, but still makes sure that it's in a good condition for use. Green pier repairs is going to be a priority for next year, and that's a $225,000 right now we have in the budget, and that's not a grant-funded project, but there are some needed repairs there. Harbor Master Building, I believe we're looking at the roof as well as paint. That was in the budget this year, but we rolled it forward into next year. The pump out dock, we've started that, and we definitely anticipate that one being finished in 2022. That's one that's been in the budget for a number of years. But I know that the work has already started over town putting that together, and I fully expect that one to be completed this year. Mole Phase 2, as we look to go into construction, again, I wanted to put a large number there in the event that we're able to make that level of construction progress. Bob is working to put together a more robust cost estimate and schedule, and so we can make adjustments with that as needed. But that dollar amount there reflects, I believe, about 75% of what grant funds we've already secured. So we have about $8 million in grant funds secured. With the local match piece, it'd be about $10 million worth for construction. And so then we would need to look at what the ultimate cost of the project is and look to phase it to allow opportunities to pursue additional funds if possible. The other big one I wanted to call out is the underground fuel tank that's looking to go into construction in the upcoming fiscal year as well. And so that is a grant-funded project, and so there's some time requirements on that one, and so that's why it's a priority that we're looking to get construction started in this budget.
Before you go on then, if you're not going to touch on the other two, the fuel dock rehab, what is that?
I have a slide dedicated just for that one.
Oh, we're going to go to that. And then there was another one I had a question now. What was that? I guess if that's my, casino improvement, is that the arch?
The casino improvement's the archway. That was in the current year budget. Just timing, we weren't able to get to it before the busy summer season, but it's definitely a priority, and it's been in the budget a couple years. And we have the funds to see that through next year. So I wanted to highlight the fuel dock rehabilitation because I'm going to, when we present the budget for adoption, it's going to be amended from what was provided to council. We've since got a better estimate update, and so what that refers to, and Bob can speak to it a lot better than I can, is some structural enhancements that are needed for some of the pilings, I believe, underneath the fuel dock itself. So we are going to have an engineer come out and look at what we can do to better secure those pilings to be able to increase the load capacity on the dock itself. And again, not an engineer, so I'm sure Bob can speak to it a lot better than I can, but the reason I wanted to highlight it is we estimated 100,000 for kind of the preliminary engineering to go into it. Since last Friday, Bob has been able to get a better estimate, and so we're actually looking to set aside 175,000 in the current budget. And so the budget resolution does include 175,000 for this project, as opposed to the 100,000 that was presented.
Somehow when you say a better estimation or whatever, you would think it's better because it's lower, not because it's $75,000 higher.
Maybe should choose a better word than better. Based on data,
Yeah.
rather than,
That's including, how much we're gonna pay the engineer to come out?
So that's for just, my understanding, that's just for the engineering. Once that's completed, we'll have a better sense of what actual construction type improvements are necessary for the pier. Again, Dave or Bob can probably speak to the project itself better than I can. I just wanted to highlight that we are increasing the amount that was presented last week in the budget document itself.
So in the meantime, can we put food trucks out there? Yes.
That's a discussion we're more than happy to have with you.
Please. Okay.
And so then, lastly, these are the capital improvements broken down by the other funds. I kind of already touched on the Housing Authority and Street Administration and CDBG. The solid waste, that is our contribution to the landfill pre-funding. And then the general administration has 46,000, and that's for various IT upgrades, including some upgrades in our AV facility. Pat's not here, but he could better speak to the specifics of those projects. So again, this is kind of that first slide that I showed, but with the updates for that one Fuel Dock Harbor project. So that is the budget that's presented before council. Happy to answer any questions.
What's that look? Once
I'll
again, you
start
did
if
an
you guys
excellent
want to,
job.
or-
Go ahead, Lisa, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say thanks, Matt, for all of this, reading through the budget, being able to see each of the different departments' capital improvement projects, and not only just the project for this year, but laying it out in that single page with multiple years of funding expected was, I think, really beneficial and helpful to understand the scope of both where reserves are and where they're coming from, and also what is being saved up for over time. So thank you for that, and thank you to the department heads for working on that. I did want to ask a question on the statement of investment policy. I read through the full policy, but didn't notice anything regarding the types of investments, and was wondering if we could just ensure between you, the city manager and city treasurer, that we look at divesting from fossil fuels and moving toward green energy investments wherever possible, if that is part of the investment strategy currently.
So for the, so there are two investment policies. I guess that does bring up a good point. Earlier this year, we adopted an investment policy that's specific to our landfill trust. So I'll kind of treat the question for both of them separately. So for the general city funds, we're pretty restricted by the state as far as what we can invest in. We have our monies currently mostly in LAIF, which is a investment pool that's available to municipal governments. And so we really don't have control over what investments LAIF is in, other than we are one voice of many as far as every city that's a part of that pool. We also do purchase CD investments, but we don't have any equity investments for the city's general funds or harbor funds or those enterprise funds. So that wouldn't be necessarily an issue for the investment policy. Why I separate it is because for our investment policy related to the landfill, we do have a small percentage of that invested in equities, and so that is a conversation I could have with with that, with Northern Trust, who's the account holder, as far as what the makeup of those equities are. But for the majority of the city funds, those types of investments wouldn't be available to us. And I believe there is in the budget document a breakdown.
I saw the
towards-
breakdown of the, yeah. I think it was there, yeah. I didn't know with LAIF if that was something where we have a point of
And I
contact
haven't.
that we can request that, or?
And that's something I can research. I don't know for sure if we do have any further input. I know we're a member of the pool along with other municipalities and county governments. So I would imagine that we'd at least have one voice or one vote in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Otherwise, great job, great assessment. I mentioned to the city manager earlier today, just looking at the seawall at the dive park as an additional item to look at, perhaps as a mid-year budget review or for next year. But wanted to thank you for your time and effort on this, for laying it out so clearly, and for making it easy to both comprehend and absorb a great deal of information. Much appreciated.
Thank you. And also, the CIP plan is something that Bob and I do discuss a lot, and we are looking, to continue to. We treat it as a living, breathing document, and there's definitely rooms for improvement there. I think it's a great starting point and a base, and it is kind of on our long list of projects for the upcoming year. But it's a great tool, and I encourage everyone to take a look at it to see what projects are on our radar. And if there are projects that are a priority to council that aren't in that CIP document, great place would be to start to have the conversation with any of city staff. Just because we don't have the money this year in the budget doesn't mean we don't want to include it in our CIP plan, because that document's a tool for us to then be able to make sure it's on our radar. And so as funds or grant opportunities become available, we can see the need and then potentially find opportunities to fill it. So it's a good start of a document, but it definitely is it's something that Bob and I and city staff are going to be working on the next year to make an even better tool for the public and council.
Great. Any other questions? Is there anybody Gabby, on the computer asking questions?
No comments.
Okay, so is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution establishing the city budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
I'll second.
Okay, further comment? Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
All ayes.
Item number 12.
Item number 12, we're seeking approval of the encroachment permit for retaining wall at the Zane Grey Hotel. I believe, Devin, are you presenting this? Or just if there's questions? We are seeking approval of encroachment permit for the retaining wall at 199 Chimes Tower Road, the Zane Grey Hotel, as authorized, and authorize city staff to negotiate with the property owners to determine the amounts of the required bond and liability insurance.
Does anybody have any questions? I don't.
No, I don't.
Unless you just want to talk, Devin.
I'll sit down.
Okay. Already, is there a motion?
Okay.
Approve encroachment permit for retaining wall at 199 Chimes Tower Road, the Zane Grey Hotel, and authorize city staff to negotiate with the property owners to determine the amounts of the required bond and liability insurance.
Guess that turned into his motion
I'll
because it was his
second.
voice. Okay. Moved and seconded, call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
All ayes.
Item number 13.
Great. I'm happy to hear that that's gonna happen. It's gonna be really great. It's gonna be great for the hillside, everybody below it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 13 is a request for transportation permit, operation plan for Leva's electric bike rental. As if you recall that a few months ago. Mr. Leyva came and the assignment of these bikes was transferred over with the understanding that he would come back, and he is back at this point. So we're asking council to consider the operations plan for the Leyva's electric bike rentals to operate up to 30 electric bikes for rental and guided tours at 233 Sumner Avenue. And if a consensus, approval from council require Mr. Leyva to adhere to all conditions set forth in the Avalon Municipal Code and Resolution 21-07. And just for council's understanding, this is the issue that we did receive the communication earlier today regarding.
And just to, I'm saying, and when I read some of, I don't want to say her concerns, but the things that she outlined, like helmets, no bikes on the sidewalk, you know, just giving them instruction, and making sure, you know, they ride in the street and all that stuff, and just basically pay attention to, like, motor vehicle, requirements, and I think then that she will be happy. Okay. Do people have questions of Mr. Leyva?
I've received no comments.
My only concern is the business hours, and that you have 24/7, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. I have no problem with that during the summer, but winter, you really don't want to have bikes out after dark?
Winter is
Okay.
gonna be totally changed, you know, maybe I say 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock.
And also, all of those bikes are limited to a speed of 20 miles per hour, correct? Yes.
One of the things that I did like she pointed out is to make sure there is someone patrolling the bikes to make sure
Yeah.
they're following the rules. That'd be great.
I
Yeah.
think it's a fantastic location,
Thank you,
and
Cindy.
I personally want to say thank you so much for all of your patience. It's been a long process. You've brought a lot of different ideas. You have very patiently worked with the city in determining a location. I know that you have the ability to do a great job with this business, and I'm very excited that this is, in my opinion, finally gonna hopefully happen, and
Yeah.
thank you for all your patience with us.
Thank you guys, I'm very easy to work with, you know, I know you guys do whatever you guys think is the best for Avalon.
And I noticed the fire chief, but he was in favor of this location as well, happy that that stop sign is there and that kind of
Okay.
thing, and it's not elevated. So you've got his sign of approval too, if I can say. Did I have one other question? Okay, go ahead, Mike.
And I just want to say something in general. When you're riding a bike in the city streets, yes, stay to the right, you ride one in front of the other, not side by side. You stop at stop signs, and if you're on an electric bike, please wear a helmet. And if
they-
you're under 18, please wear a helmet.
And
That's a
somebody,
good
I was telling them they need to do hand signals, and they go, well, we can't because they tell us to keep both hands on the wheel. Well, you're only gonna give your hand signal because you're gonna stop first. So then you can put your hand out and give your hand signal and come back in. That's very frustrating to me that people don't do that in their golf carts as well.
And I'm just trying to reiterate what rules are. It's general, rules of the road. And the other is you are not supposed to be riding on city sidewalks.
No.
Nobody rides on city sidewalks. It's not, you ride in the street.
And Yesenia, you brought it, when I was talking about is you're gonna have somebody that goes and checks. You might wanna try to do a deal like, the golf cart rentals place, because I think they share that responsibility, because there's also another, how many out there? A bunch of others out there. So it might not be a bad idea to see if you could work with them as well.
Okay.
No.
And you know Dave, from Carolina Bike Rental, he's gonna be basically my mentor, to put me on the business and help me with anything I need, so.
Great.
That's very nice of him.
Yes, awesome, okay.
I would love to make a motion to agree to the operations plan for Leyva's electric bike rentals to operate up to 30 electric bicycles for rental and guided tours at 233 Sumner Avenue, and to adhere to all conditions set forth in the Avalon Municipal Code and Resolution 21-07.
I'll second.
Motion, any comments or anything, Gabby, over there?
I do not.
Okay, call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
All ayes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
De nada. Okay, I believe we're going into closed session.
Yes, we have one closed sessions, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, the Island Enterprise versus City of Avalon case.
Okay, we'll be back. Tony, if you check out, good night.
Lisa's not really talking to me.
We're back from closed session. There's no reportable action. Meeting's adjourned.